Have you ever had the feeling that your partner isn't fully enjoying your intimate moments? Maybe you've noticed she doesn't reach the peak, or even worse, that she has to finish on her own afterward. It's frustrating, I know, especially if you're a mature man who wants to give his best but feels that, despite your efforts, something is missing. Have you ever wondered why this happens? What does she really need to reach that blissful high? Today, I have the answer for you. We're going to reveal 5 types of tration that will help your woman not only reach climax, but do so in a way that's deeper, more pleasurable, and unforgettable. This isn't a set of common tricks or quick tips. What you're about to discover are techniques rooted in years of wisdom, female psychology, and insights from great thinkers who truly understood what fuels human desire. These lessons aren't just based on years of experience, they're also backed by studies from psychologists specializing in human sexuality, as well as insights from great minds who have explored women's deepest desires. Over the years, I've listened to the stories of many women and men like you, and I know exactly what works. I'm Celia, and I welcome you to this space where we share intimate, respectful, and profound wisdom. If it's your first time here, I invite you to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because this kind of content can transform your relationships and love life. Stay until the end, because after this video, you'll never see intimacy in the same way again. Let's get started. Number 1, the secret of extreme slowness. Many men believe that intensity is synonymous with pleasure, thinking that the faster or stronger the encounter, the more satisfied a woman will be. But today, I'm going to reveal something most people don't know. Something that completely changes the game, especially when it comes to mature women. Extreme slowness is the key. Imagine this: a mature woman isn't looking for a quick or mechanical physical connection. After years of experience, her body and mind respond differently. What she truly enjoys is something much deeper and subtler, the sensation of being led to the edge with controlled calm. This is where the concept of slow nepentration comes into play, a method that can awaken far more intense sensations than any fast, hurried encounter. My friend Letitia, a 52-year-old woman, once shared with me how this experience transformed her intimate life. For years, she felt something was missing. Even though there was an emotional connection with her partner, their intimacy didn't lead her to the peak she desired. It wasn't until her partner started practicing what I'm about to share with you, extreme slowness, that she began experiencing a kind of pleasure beyond the physical. She laughed as she confessed, "I didn't know it was possible to enjoy this much until I realized that calm prolonged my desire." This concept is backed by psychological studies. According to renowned sex therapist Ian Kerner, author of She Comes First, anticipation and prolonged physical contact stimulate the brain in ways that can't be achieved through speed. Female desire is like a slow-cooking pot, says Kerner. If you want it to boil over with pleasure, you have to be patient. Neuroscience supports this idea. Research on female arousal shows that women respond better when the pace is slower. It's not just about movement, but about how time and anticipation are used. Extreme slowness lets the mind and body align, causing the brain to release dopamine and oxytocin, the pleasure and bonding hormones, more gradually, creating a richer experience. This idea even goes back to the ancient Greek philosopher Aristippus of Cyrene, who spoke of how true pleasure isn't something to be sought impatiently, but something to be savored and prolonged wisely. Pleasure is sweet only when it's slow, he said, and that truth still holds centuries later, especially in intimate moments with a mature woman. Extreme slowness isn't just about moving slowly, it's about being present in every second. It's about syncing with her, reading every little gesture, every sigh, every change in her breathing, and adapting to her rhythm. This doesn't mean being passive. On the contrary, it's an act of control over the moment. Deep, shared breathing, for example, can create an emotional bridge between you, calming nerves and deepening the connection. You'll feel how, little by little, her body starts to relax and opens up to new sensations. Don't think about getting anywhere. Slow tration is about treating each movement as if it were the last. It's a journey, not a destination. When you feel the intensity building, surprise her with a pause. Stop. This physical silence creates a void her body will yearn to fill. That pause builds anticipation, multiplying the pleasure when you finally continue. This is where many men make a mistake. Instead of rushing, mastering the art of waiting is what truly transforms the experience. During this process, maintain eye contact whenever possible. In his famous study on intimacy, social psychologist Arthur Aaron found that prolonged eye contact creates a feeling of closeness that words cannot achieve. Don't underestimate the power of looking into her eyes. As her body connects with you, her emotions intensify too, making for a richer experience in every sense. By applying these techniques, you're not only increasing her pleasure, but also creating an emotional bond that goes far beyond the physical. As relationship expert John Gottman notes, true intimacy isn't in the act itself, but in the bond created by being fully present in that moment. And this presence, this mindfulness, is something mature women value more than any other gesture. It's what truly makes them feel desired and understood. Remember, dear, extreme slowness isn't a technique that yields immediate results in the traditional sense. It's a way to transform the intimate experience, to stretch pleasure to the point where every second feels more intense than the last. When you practice this, you'll notice her desire expanding and deepening. Letitia told me that after using this technique with her partner, every time we did it this way, I felt the pleasure multiply. It wasn't just physical, it was as if my mind was completely freed. And here's the secret: mature women, with all their experience and wisdom, can tell when a man is truly present. And that, dear, is what they enjoy most. It's not speed or force that mature women enjoy most during tration, but extreme slowness, the ability to prolong pleasure to the fullest, creating a deeper connection and bringing her to a state where body and mind align in perfect harmony. If you can master this art, you'll take your partner to a level of pleasure she's never experienced before. Number 2, silent tration. Sometimes during intimacy, men believe that constant talking or exaggerated sounds are ways to connect or increase pleasure. However, what many mature women truly value is the power of silence, that space where words don't exist and everything is communicated through presence and gestures. Maria, a 55-year-old woman, once confessed to me that the most unforgettable moments in her intimate life had been those where silence filled the room. In those moments, she said, I didn't need to hear anything because I felt everything. When silence enters the scene, the senses sharpen. The mind frees itself from distractions, and the body tunes in to every touch, every movement. Silence creates a natural tension that often gets lost amidst noise. According to psychologist and sexuality expert Esther Perel, mystery is a fundamental element of desire, and nothing creates mystery quite like silence. When you remove words, what remains is pure sensation, total focus on what's happening in that very moment. There's scientific reasoning behind this too. When one of our senses is dimmed, the others become heightened. By reducing sound to a bare minimum, touch, smell, and sight take center stage. For a mature woman who has experienced all kinds of moments, this becomes an unexpected and powerful way to rediscover pleasure. Let silence speak for you. Eliminate words and allow every gesture, every look to carry much greater emotional weight. When she realizes you're fully present, without distractions, you'll feel how the connection intensifies and the pleasure transforms into something deeper. You'll be surprised by how much you can convey without saying a single word, because, in the end, true connection doesn't need sound, only full attention. Number 3, the stop and observe technique. There's something deeply powerful about pausing at just the right moment. Sometimes the pause itself is more erotic than any movement. Here, I'm revealing a little-known, yet highly effective technique, stopping completely in the middle of the act and carefully observing your partner's reactions. This technique isn't just physical, it's a psychological act that creates a deeper connection and elevates her pleasure to an unexpected level. Imagine you're in an intense moment of intimacy. Everything seems to be flowing, but instead of heading toward the obvious conclusion, you stop. You remain still, and in that pause, you observe her body. Her breathing deepens, her muscles subtly tense, and without her realizing it, her desire grows. This pause creates a space, a palpable tension that her body starts filling with more desire. It's not an uncomfortable wait, it's a space where she becomes even more aware of every sensation. American sexologist David Schnarch speaks about how pauses in intimacy can lead to a more intense, emotional exchange. According to Schnarch, stopping and observing your partner in that instant allows you to tune into her emotions and desires. This isn't just a physical act, but a way to understand what she's feeling without needing her to say it. For mature women, this type of pause holds profound meaning. It's not just about physical pleasure, but about the complete attention you're giving her. Stopping shows you care about the details, that you're willing to listen to what her body communicates without words. This simple gesture creates a sense of intimacy far more intense than any continuous movement. A pause also amplifies pleasure. According to psychologist and sex therapist Barry McCarthy, anticipation is one of the key ingredients of desire. When you stop right at the point where pleasure peaks, her mind and body connect in a way that generates a deeper longing. In that stillness, everything intensifies. Her breathing, her heartbeat, and the energy between you both becomes almost tangible. So next time, don't be afraid to stop. It's not a sign of insecurity, but of control. And by observing each of her gestures, you'll know when to continue and how to do it in a way that will make her remember this moment as one of the most pleasurable of her life. Because in the end, a connection in stillness is far more powerful than one found in haste. If you're enjoying this video so far and feel you're discovering new ways to connect intimately with your partner, don't forget to subscribe and hit the thumbs up button to support this content. Stick with me until the end, because the most important part is yet to come. A sixth way to connect that could completely change how you experience your intimate life. And let me know, where are you listening from? I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let's continue with what will help transform your connection in the bedroom. Number 4, the Circle of Nep. One of the most common mistakes men make is to think of pleasure as a straight line. You start, you move forward, and everything ends in climax. But today, I'm going to show you something completely different, something that mature women uniquely appreciate: circular Nep. This is about breaking away from the rigid, linear idea of pleasure and exploring a more organic, fluid movement, like a circle, which not only stimulates in a different way, but also awakens areas of her body that you may never have explored before. Maria, a 58-year-old woman who's experienced both long-term relationships and fleeting encounters, shared this with me. Most men think they need to keep a constant rhythm, always in one direction. But when someone surprised me with circular movements, it was like my body woke up in a new way. I felt new sensations, as if I'd never been touched that way before. This kind of stimulation has a profound impact on the female body. Linearity can be predictable and, over time, lose intensity. Circular movements, on the other hand, awaken different nerve endings, creating a richer, more varied experience. A woman's body doesn't respond uniformly. Each area can react differently, depending on the type of stimulation. Circular movements, which vary pressure and speed, allow pleasure to expand in waves, touching points that a linear motion simply can't reach. This is where the philosophy of cyclic pleasure comes in, a concept psychotherapist Jack Moran explores in his book, The Erotic Mind. Moran speaks about how pleasure doesn't always need to follow a direct path to climax. Instead, it should take detours, include surprises, and, above all, movements that defy expectations. This approach not only heightens physical arousal, but also creates a mental connection as she feels completely absorbed in the experience. When you practice circular Nep tration, you're sending a message that you're not in a hurry, that you're there to explore every part of her body, not just rush to the end. This is something mature women, with all their experience, deeply value. They've had hurried or mechanical encounters before, and now they're looking for something more, a sense of connection, novelty, the feeling that their bodies can be rediscovered time and again, even in the simplest gestures. This approach also has a scientific basis. Studies in the neurobiology of pleasure show that the brain responds more intensely when stimulus patterns vary. Instead of following a repetitive rhythm, circular movements send varied signals to the brain, keeping dopamine levels high and extending pleasure. This variety maintains excitement at its peak, making each movement feel fresh, as if it were the first time. Ultimately, pleasure doesn't always have to be a straight-line race to the finish. When you break the routine and dare to explore circular Nep tration, you're opening new doors of pleasure for her. Every turn, every change in direction can awaken sensations she didn't even know she had. And in that discovery, you both will find a connection that's much deeper, richer, and, above all, unforgettable. Mature women seek more than just routine. They want a partner who knows how to explore, who breaks the monotony and dares to be creative. So next time, set aside the predictable rhythm, dare to move in circles, vary the speed and intensity, and watch as her responses guide you toward a far more expansive pleasure. Number 5, the psychology of the unfinished ending. One of the biggest myths about intimacy is that everything must end in an explosive climax, as if reaching the peak were the sole purpose. However, for many mature women, the most pleasurable part isn't reaching that predictable finish, but experiencing prolonged desire, the lingering excitement when the peak moment is left incomplete. This is what we call the psychology of the unfinished ending, a technique that can completely change how you understand Nep tration. A few years ago, a woman named Beatrice, 57, shared something with me that struck a chord. My partner used to think that climax was the only goal, she said, but when we learned to stop before reaching that point, we found the pleasure lasted longer, as if our bodies stayed in a state of continuous desire. This technique of pausing just before the finish creates a tension that, rather than frustrating, intensifies desire in her body and mind, leaving an impression that lasts long after the encounter. Psychologist and sex therapist Barry McCarthy explains this well in his research on prolonged eroticism. McCarthy states that unfulfilled anticipation can be a powerful source of excitement, because when the ending is left pending, the body continues processing that desire. It's like a door left slightly open, allowing pleasure to flow for much longer. Instead of dissipating quickly, her mind keeps exploring, searching, and longing. For a mature woman who has experienced conventional encounters for years, this approach is profoundly stimulating. It's not about frustrating pleasure, but prolonging it, leaving desire simmering so it can continue to build. The mind plays a crucial role here, as climax isn't only physical, but also emotional. Leaving the ending unfinished activates the mind, keeping the desire alive even after the encounter ends. But this technique isn't just a psychological trick. According to the neuroscience of pleasure, leaving a cycle incomplete activates the brain's reward system, maintaining high dopamine levels and prolonging arousal. Simply put, when the body and mind are left wanting more, pleasure doesn't vanish. It transforms into a constant current that can last for hours, even days. Surprisingly, this also elevates intimacy and connection between partners. Instead of everything being resolved in that one moment, a deeper bond is created, showing up in everyday life. This doesn't mean you should always leave things unresolved. The key lies in variation, in knowing when to continue and when to stop. This technique is especially effective when you're both deeply connected and have reached a level of closeness where words aren't necessary. It's at this point that an unfinished ending can become one of the greatest gifts you can offer her. Because you're not just prolonging desire, you're offering an experience that defies conventional expectations. Think of it like music. It's not always the last chord that defines a melody's beauty, but the silences between the notes, the anticipation of what's to come. And for many mature women, those silences, those pauses that leave something pending, are where true pleasure resides. So next time you're in a moment of intense connection, dare to leave something undiscovered. Don't always seek an immediate end. Let desire linger in the air. Let her body and mind keep resonating even after the encounter ends. That is the true magic of the psychology of the unfinished ending, creating an invisible bond that will keep pleasure alive far longer than you ever imagined. Bonus: oral nepentration as total surrender. If you've made it this far, it's because you're committed to taking your intimate life to a deeper level. That's why I want to share a 6th lesson with you, a bonus that only those truly willing to explore intimate wisdom can apply. This is a secret many mature women quietly enjoy, but don't always feel comfortable confessing: the pleasure of fully surrendering control during oral nepentration. This isn't just physical nepentration, it's an experience that completely involves the mind and body. Many women, especially mature ones, find an unexpected pleasure in letting go completely, without using their hands, while you take total control of the situation. This isn't about aggressive dominance or the kind of submission pop culture suggests. It's a profound release that allows them to experience a type of pleasure that, for them, is a true escape from control. When you engage in oral nepentration in this way, every movement should be slow, gentle, and deliberate. It's not about speed or pushing boundaries quickly. Here, the key is the depth of the experience you create, where she feels that every sensation is carefully guided by you. Not being able to use her hands adds a layer of vulnerability that, far from being uncomfortable, can be intensely exciting. This is the moment when, after years of control and responsibility, she can finally let herself go with you in complete trust, knowing her desires are in your hands. Psychotherapist David Schnarch describes this kind of surrender as conscious emotional abandonment, where a woman can allow herself to be vulnerable in a safe environment, creating a connection that goes beyond the physical. Oral nepentration in this context is not just another intimate act, but a way to connect on a physical and emotional level that transcends expectations. The secret is in how you control the rhythm. It should be gentle, deep, and unhurried, allowing you to observe each of her reactions. Guiding the movement, the intensity, and seeing how she responds is what builds this connection. By removing her ability to take control, you're opening a door to her most intimate pleasure, allowing her to experience something that, for many mature women, is liberating: the freedom to let go and receive without having to think about anything else. Neuroscience tells us that when a person feels safe while surrendering control, the brain releases oxytocin in higher levels, deepening emotional connection and exponentially increasing pleasure. This release of control is a type of submission that isn't imposed but chosen. She's voluntarily surrendering because she trusts you, and in that moment, her pleasure becomes your responsibility. If you want to take your intimate relationship to a level you may have never explored before, try this form of oral nepentration as an act of gentle, consensual surrender. This isn't about physical dominance. It's about creating a space where she can disconnect from everything external and give herself to you completely. The control you take here is, in reality, an act of mutual surrender, because as you lead, you are also deeply attuned to her needs and desires. This bonus is for those who have made it to the end, who are willing to explore what often remains unspoken. If you dare to apply this wisdom, you'll find that true pleasure lies in that total surrender, where her body and mind align, allowing you to guide her to a deeper level of fulfillment. At the end of the day, true intimacy isn't just about physical acts, but about how we connect on a deeper level, how we let our wisdom and experience guide each gesture, each whisper, each pause. Mature women, with everything they've lived, seek more than the obvious. They seek a connection that speaks of trust, of surrender, and of a mutual desire to explore a richer, more complete, intimate life together. Today, we've explored different ways to create that connection. Extreme slowness, the power of silence, pauses that awaken desire, circular movements that break routine, the pleasure of leaving something unfinished, and total surrender in oral tration. These aren't empty techniques but doorways to a deeper connection, where both of you can rediscover each other again and again. And if there's one thing I want you to remember, it's that everything we do in intimacy reflects the quality of our relationship outside of it. Each small change in how we approach our partner, each gesture of understanding, each shared exploration is a way to enrich our lives in every aspect. My name is Celia, and I want this to be a place of wisdom where we can discuss these important topics openly, but always with respect. Here, we go beyond the surface to explore life's nuances that often go unspoken. Together, I want us to find ways to improve our quality of life, not only in the intimate, but in everything we do, because each small act of understanding and reflection shines through in our happiness and well-being. If this is your first time here, I invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications. Believe me, you won't want to miss the upcoming topics because I promise not only to surprise you, but to help you better understand the complex emotions that make us human. If you've made it this far, it's because you're committed to your own growth, and I want to acknowledge that. To see who's really connected with this message until the end, comment the phrase, "I love wisdom," and tell me where you're listening from. I'd love to know who's on this journey with me. And before you go, don't forget to share this video with someone who might need a fresh perspective on intimacy. Sometimes, a simple reflection can make a huge difference in someone's life. I'll see you in the next video, where we'll keep exploring those secrets that, once discovered, can transform your life.